Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Angie.
And together, we are TwinFinity.
Wow, that was a very emphatic we.
It was a big we, not a little we.
Okay, moving on. So, we are in a different spot for our video tonight.
We're sitting in what would typically be called the kitchen slash what? Dining room?
Dining room.
Dining room, yeah.
Or a nook of our kitchen.
Yeah, we're sitting on the floor because we got lots of sunshine behind us and we got lots of light deflecting elementy bits on our shelves behind us. And in fact, the shelves behind us have a little bit of a story.
Yes.
It's one that I'll shake my head at a couple of times as Angie tells it.
Since we're doing a video about union, we thought this was the perfect location to do our video because there's an amazing story about these shelves behind us.
These shelves are actually two identical shelves, just set up mirror image to each other, and they're just side by side. It's really hard to tell. It looks like it's one unit, but it actually is two side by side.
Yes, so they're literally twin shelves, and there's a neat story. I was guided to, we used to have like a little table there, and we never used it other than for plants and stuff. So I was guided at the beginning of COVID, if you've seen some of our other videos, I talked about how I was guided to buy a bunch of stuff that's all sparkly and iridescent that would reflect light. And I didn't even understand why at first, because this was before COVID was even like a thing. But I was told later it was because we were going to be spending a lot of time in our home and we needed to have upgraded energy. And these things, all these iridescents with their color reflecting, would increase the vibration of the house. So once I found all these things, I needed a new shelf to put them on. And I kept hunting and hunting for shelves. And every time I'd go to buy something, it would fall through. 3 times I went to buy a shelf for there and it fell through. One of them, we were driving to go pick it up. And the lady said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I just sold it to someone else." I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
Well, we also didn't want to buy brand new. That's kind of expensive. So we were looking at the used markets online.
Yeah.
So that's what we were keeping an eye on.
And so then everything was falling through because they weren't the right one. Does this at all make sense with like even the twin flame journey, right? Things don't work out, they don't work out, they don't work out because there's something better for us, whether it's the twin itself or other things on the journey. So anyways, I ended up finding these 2 shelves. And what's really, really neat about them
Here's
is...
where I shake my head.
Yeah, this is the funny, amazing part. The address added up to 1111. We won't give you the person's address because, you know, confidentiality will respect for...
But the digits in their address added up to
Yes,
1111.
And the address was Reunion Terrace. Could that be any more crazy amazing?
So something like 1111 Reunion Terrace.
Where we got twin bookshelves.
Twin bookshelves.
Shelves.
And mirror image bookshelves, nonetheless.
Yes. So this is the story of why we thought if we're doing a video about union, we needed to do it in this spot. So we're literally sitting on our kitchen floor. For those of you that enjoy our behind the scenes pictures, we will post these on Friday. So you can see where we're really, truly sitting.
And I've already been leaning backwards on my hand, and it's got a big flat spot on it. And, oh boy, it even shows up as red where I've been leaning on my hand. Ouch. So anyway, that will continue. My hand will recover.
Yeah, we'll try not to make this video too long so we can save our hands and our poor butts.
And ankle bones.
That too. So the reason we wanted to do a video on union is because we've had couple people now, just in the last month or so, ask us about union, what it's like, what happens after union. Is there still arguments? Is there still fights? In fact, we have a question here. Maybe we'll just read it.
I'll read the question. There's a lot in it, but it's not a very long question. It's just lots of tiny little questions all jammed together.
Yeah.
It says, I have a question about TFs in union and how they handle conflicts. Do old traumas and trigger cause disagreements and arguments sometimes? Do TFs in union argue less than other couples? If upset with each other, are things said out of anger you later regret? Is the intensity sometimes out of balance or just too much, like it was in the runner-chaser stages. I'd love some insight into the daily dynamics of a couple in union. Thank you. Some questions become a whole video all on their own.
Which is why, and because there was this question, and then just, I think, a week, maybe 2 weeks ago, I had somebody else ask us, that another couple that's in union, that are like, is this really what happens in union? Like, does this still happen? Are we on track? What's going on? So we thought, you know what, let's just do a video and talk about union.
What I'd like to say before we get into more specifics is that life in general still happens. It's not all 5D when you're in union.
Right. And it's not all fairy tale either.
Things go wrong. You knock over somebody else's favorite glass thing and it breaks. I haven't done that for a long time.
Oh, okay. I was like, is that an example in our life? Is there something I don't know about?
There's lots of glass things to knock over.
I thought you were going to tell the story of your glass thing.
Oh, well, that's another thing, though. But this still all happens. Somebody will pull the thought of doing a grocery night on a night when someone else has not really been planning to go do groceries.
Because they're highly sensitive and they've had enough of people and they're like, I can't walk through a grocery store tonight.
Yeah, I'll sometimes come home with that grand plan of, yes, we can go get everything tonight and this and that. And then I walk in through the door and my favorite HSP person has already been overloaded for the day and groceries just aren't quite an option.
No.
Or maybe there's other nights where I come home and I've got my master plan of what I need to do because I was busy last night. I'm going to be busy tomorrow night. So tonight's my night to
do a video.
Do a video. That wasn't on my agenda tonight. And I had to do some scrambling around and redoing bits and smiling and putting some thoughts on the shelf to see things differently and understand that it's the right thing to do. Notwithstanding the mind frame that it takes to get into to, let's say, do a video. So there's all sorts of little conflicts that come along, and sometimes there's bigger conflicts, but for whatever reason, big conflicts don't seem to happen explosively.
No.
I find that
at least not in our
realm.
experience.
No, we look after our energy better. If something is just totally not right, and a few minutes go by and it's still not right, usually it's, well, if I'm the one that's struggling, it's grab Angie, take her over to the couch, snuggle into the couch, get her all in a nice big comfortable bear hug, and then say, I'm upset about something, and then we launch into a conversation while snuggled on the couch with the thought that it's probably not going to go bad, but we're starting out in a peaceful mode.
Yeah.
And we do that on purpose. Really, it's Angie's turn to talk, but for me, when it comes to conflict, it's about energy management. I can go all over the place with my energy. Angie is not built that way. She needs stable energy, or if she's got lots of energy, she needs a place to put it. And I just can't come charging in with a bunch of unknown or aggressive or upset energy into a conversation and expect it to be received and have a home and have a place to go that will really be constructive. I just have to be careful that way. And there's really lots of couples out there that maybe don't realize how spiritually connected that they are, and they run into these problems all the time. Somebody says, we need to solve something right now, and the other one's in a, I can't solve anything right now. Can we wait a few minutes? Mode. And that's oftentimes where conflicts get out of control, is where energies are not allowed to come together in peace. They come together and turn into a rogue wave, and nobody can control a rogue wave of energy if they're not ready for it.
Yeah. I want to do two things. I want to answer these questions, but then I also want to kind of walk people through the beginning of our union to now, because things have changed a lot.
Yes.
It's not like the cohesiveness we have now is how we started. It was not that smooth and not that easy to begin with. We went through a lot of both external challenges when we first got into union, but also challenges between us. So maybe I'll address these first, and then I want to go back and just kind of talk about the beginning.
I'd just like to clarify how far back you want to go. We could go back to 1997.
No, that's really too far back.
Okay, so starting in 1997, there was all sorts of things that we had no idea about, and it was very complicated. We couldn't really solve everything, and then it took us 17 years of trying to learn stuff, and also just having education to finally, yes, totally apart.
Yeah.
Most of the time apart. To learn how to have a chance to put this back together.
Yeah.
There. Okay, so there's the first 17 years.
Okay, so I'm going to look at this. So, how do they handle conflicts? So, of course, we're only speaking for our own union. We can't speak for other people's, but we handle conflicts very well. We are both peacekeeper kind of people. We both are not people that like to fight. We're not yelly, screamy kind of people. Even in previous relationships, that's just not how we ever work.
And I don't know how to work that way.
No.
I can't get into a yelling and screaming conflict with it, even with people I barely know. I have a hard time expressing any disappointment to somebody, even if I get cut off in traffic, as an example. I usually just wave and smile and give them the, oh well, we had a problem and we didn't touch fenders and all is good with life, and away they go. Because I don't know how to say, you jerk, look in your mirror next time. I just don't know how to do that to people.
No, and that's just not who you are.
Yeah, it's
not in your makeup.
It's not constructive enough, it's not thoughtful enough, it's not polite enough.
Yeah. So yes, we still do have conflict, but we have very little of it, and when we have it, it's very quickly and easily resolved. And what makes that so much easier when you're in union and have been for a while is you know yourself, you know your triggers. And number one, you don't even have as many triggers as you used to have, but even the triggers that you still have, you know them, and you're able to catch yourself and go, wait a sec, I'm triggered. And instead of pointing the finger at the other person, you're able to own your own stuff and look at your own shadow and be okay with your own shadow aspects. Instead of having to point it at the other person because you don't want to own your stuff, you can just say, I'm sorry, this is what I was going through, this is what I was feeling, or this is what triggered me. And then we just speak that, and then we move on. It's very quick, very easy. Yes, we still say things. There's a question in here about, like, do you still say things that are hurtful?
Things said out of anger that you later regret?
You have less than that, in my opinion, than I do. I still have some.
You see, and I was going to say it's the opposite. I sometimes say things and I worry about how I've now disturbed the energy, and I come back with little apologies later.
Yes, that's true, you too. And I'm like, what? Yeah, that's fine. It's all good. I didn't even notice it. So we don't have major arguments really at all. We still have moments where we get annoyed with each other, and you know, one of us will have to leave the room, and then we can come back, and it's usually very quickly, like within a half an hour at the latest.
Usually if someone has to storm away for just a little bit, they storm and return. Well, from my point of view, I like to have that done in under a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I'm more the hot-headed one than he is. He's very, very calm. I'm more the reactive one, and I'm way less reactive than I used to be, but I still have that in me. So I'm the one that tends to need to go away and just chill out, take a deep breath, and then go, okay, I see where I went wrong. And then I can come back and apologize.
Sometimes I don't notice that Angie has stepped away and I go, oh, where'd Angie go? And I go tromping back into her space while she's still steaming and stewing and bubbling like a little volcano. And then I get the look or the blast of energy or something and I go, oh, okay, when can I come back? Then if it's still quiet, then I just know to go do something else for a while.
I can't even think of an example of that, but that is true. It does happen. But I can't even think of an actual example at the moment.
Still fairly rare. I call that a once every 6 month event. And sometimes I kind of have an idea what triggered all that. And sometimes I'm going, well, it could be any one of 4 or 5 things. Usually it's most of the 4 or 5 things. That's why it's turned into a little bubbling over fest.
Yes, that's funny.
And that's all when we end up with a couch snuggle to discuss it all. And 45 minutes later, I've gone, oh, that's how that came across. I didn't mean it that way. And that's another thing to really, really understand is that other than when I'm bugging Angie when she's trying to brush her teeth and she's totally defenseless because she's dealing with a toothbrush and a mouthful of foamy toothpaste.
And he comes, I'm standing in front of the mirror brushing my teeth and he comes around behind me and he like goes like this and I'm like, oh, I'm suffocated. Highly sensitive person. I'm like, ugh. And sometimes I'll bark, sometimes I can be calm, and other times I'm like, oh my God, stop touching me. And thank God he's very calm and peaceful and just goes away.
And you see how this happens is when Angie gets tired, she gets very focused on just packing it in.
Yes.
When I get tired, I get all snuggly and lovey, and of course, it's later on in the evening I'm getting all huggy. Just when she's getting all, I'm done with the day, and this is where sometimes conflicts can happen. We understand this about each other, but when she starts to again bubble over, I know that's my cue to know that I've given her a couple of nice hugs, and that's going to do for the next half an hour.
And this is a perfect segue into one of the things I wanted to really make sure I addressed is in the early years of your connection, you might not know what your triggers are, nor what your twin flames are, and you might not understand where you fit and where you don't fit. And even when you're in union, it's not like you have perfect balance all the time and you just always fit together. This is a real good example. When I'm tired, I get oversensitive and I just want to like close down. You know, you imagine a flower that's all like lit up when it's sunshine and then it just goes. That's totally my personality. Rob, on the other hand, when he gets tired, he gets more lovey and more snuggly and wants to like me. And I'm just like, oh my God, like I'm done. Get off, go away. And when we were 17, or now, way more than 17 years ago.
23 years later.
1997, we didn't know this about ourselves. I didn't know that he got more lovey and snuggly when he was tired. I didn't connect the dots of when angry drill sergeant intense Rob was out versus nice sweet cuddly Rob was out. And sometimes I wanted sweet cuddly Rob and he wasn't there, and other times I was like, okay, I'm done, I'm going to bed now, and sweet cuddly Rob would come out and I'm like, no, go away. So we didn't know ourselves, nor did we know each other. Now we do. So we're able to say, okay, you're tired, so you want to be all snuggly. I'm really tired and I'm just done. I'm going to bed. I'm done with the day. Or we can, have that balance and say, okay, yes, let's have our snuggle time. We genuinely mean snuggle. We're not talking about anything else.
No,
that's a whole other video.
We agreed to a little bit of Rob balancing time, so I get a snuggle, and then I have to agree to just let her be on her own for a while. And with all that being understood, now that it's understood, it's not hard to do. It's just hard to get it figured out when to start.
Yeah. But because we know ourselves and each other better, we're able to communicate better and go, this is where I'm at, this is what I'm feeling. All those years ago, I didn't know I was highly sensitive. I didn't know that when I was overwhelmed, I would get really snarly and barky. Now I know that and I can catch that before it happens. So I can just say, look, I'm oversensitive. I just need space. I need to go hide in my meditation room, or I need to just go build a puzzle or do whatever. And he can honor that. Whereas before, because I couldn't even express what I needed, how could he know what I needed and what to do with me? So it gets much easier the more you've worked through your stuff and the more your twin has worked through their stuff, because then you can communicate with each other rather than just being reactive. You can act instead of reacting. So it's much, much easier now. So yes, we still have conflict, but it's resolved much quicker. Feelings don't get hurt because we can express what we need to express without being mean, being angry, most of the time. And then there's other times where feelings get hurt and we then apologize, move on.
It's a never-ending learning curve, but when you finally have the basics down, then you've got somewhere to work to.
Yes.
And that literally only comes from experience. And I can see where it'd be very tough for couples that barely understand themselves as individuals to try to get these balances all figured out between them. One or the other. It just gets so frustrated that it becomes separation time.
Yeah. Yeah. You trigger each other so much that then you got to pull away again. But that's why separation, as much as people hate it, it is such a blessing, because it does give you then opportunity to reflect and to heal and to work through more things, so that when you do come back together again, you can say, now I know this about myself. I didn't know this before. And hopefully your twin can then say the same thing in their own way, because often the masculine and feminine energies are aware in different ways. But hopefully then you can work through stuff and then go, hey, I just learned this about myself. I want to share this with you. So, sorry, you were going to say something?
Do old traumas and triggers stop? Old traumas and triggers, this is my own opinion. You can work on them, you can understand them, but they seldom completely go away. Because if it becomes a trigger to the point that it's actually a trauma, it's always going to be there. It might be far more manageable, but that's the thing, it'll still always need to be managed. Now, you might be able to very successfully manage it, but you'll still need to manage it. It's not that you can take some of these old traumas and triggers and evaporate them into nothing. Sometimes you can.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say sometimes you can. In fact, a lot of times you can.
But sometimes, especially a trauma or a trigger brought on by another relationship, it's almost better to acknowledge it and understand it and let it be part of your life as something that you do understand that it had a purpose. And then if it gets stomped on, remember that it's not anything anyone did on purpose. It's still something you need to own, but it's also yours, and you can use that as an educational tool to help you with your twin. Help them understand why something is a trigger. It's important not to bury a trigger, because then that's where you start to hide stress within yourself when someone continually pokes a trigger and they have no idea. Triggers, if they're there, it's best to understand them and have them out in the open. Whether they're embarrassing or whether they scare you or might scare your twin, it's still better to know that they're there than to not and have to deal with it.
Yeah, and I was going to just say that's where communication is so, so important. It's one of the, in my opinion, one of the most important things of any relationship, but especially a twin flame one. Even though you're aware, you're connected, and you have a special bond, you can't assume the other person knows everything about you and knows that you feel this way just because you're the same soul, you're the same essence and the same energy in different bodies. That doesn't mean that they're mind readers and they're going to know everything that's going on within you. That's why communication is so important, because you often are, in a lot of ways, similar, but also in a lot of ways very opposite. So you're polar opposites. Your twin might be looking at something from one perspective and you're looking at it from a completely different perspective, and they have no clue what your perspective is. So if you can communicate, this is what's going on for me, this is why I'm triggered, or this is what's bothering me, so much better.
Just like the shelves behind us. One shelf is seeing something from the point of view of a large plant and a blue vase and a pink vase. The very same sunlight, the very same trigger on the other shelf is a tall cylinder, two washed out, almost clear things, but one's a bit of a mosaic.
That's funny, you can't even see them with all the sunlight in the background.
Well, that's right. The way that they're reflecting the light, even though it's the same light just a few feet away, is very different. So this is why triggers are important to know. All those little elements are actually triggers because of how they bend the light. They're triggering the light to do different things. And then there's our perspective.
Brilliant.
So, yeah, twin shelves, very different.
Good analogy. And that brings me to a story I wanted to share from when Rob and I were first in union. If you're not familiar with our journey, we'll link it above. We've done a whole video series, 44 videos on our entire journey from when we first met, or even before we first met, all the way to union. But when we first got into union, we had a lot of outside drama going on, which is quite common. I don't want to scare people, but it is very common for both twins, once you come into physical union, to have some sort of tragedy or outside issue, whether it's family stuff or I've heard of some people going homeless, just something. It might be small, it might be big, but it's the universe's way of saying, are you really ready for this? Are you really ready? Have you done enough work to step in and be with your partner together and work through this?
And to not make it easy, like Angie was saying, these bits and pieces of trauma or difficulty are thrown at you as just a test. Like Angie says, a reminder, can you be together when things are tough? You might be just getting together right now because things look all rosy, but everything from 3D to 5D life is going to step in once in a while and throw a curveball.
Yeah. So, first of all, union is not the fairy tale everybody thinks it is. Yes, it has fairy tale moments.
And it
is magical.
It's got fairy tale elements. The castle is always just right there, right behind us. and so is the battlefields just right in front of us sometimes. It's all over the place. And for me, the biggest bit is to have respect for wherever your twin lands up in any form of a conflict. Whether it's a conflict that they're having with someone else, or a conflict that they're having with you, or a conflict that they're having with an inanimate object. For example, a stove or a fridge that just keeps on not working. And it just is making them very angry. You just don't go, oh yeah, don't worry about it, we'll just get another one. That's not where they're at. Don't do that to them. Their energy is there. You gotta let them work their way through it.
That's not our situation. So.
Our stove and fridges.
Don't manifest that.
We're not manifesting bad stove and frigidness.
Frigidness, yeah. That's a whole other topic. So I just wanted to give you a little brief synopsis of our journey to union, if you don't know our story. When we first came into union, our exes created a whole nightmare. We both were with narcissistic people before coming into union, and they got together, conspired, and did a whole pile of things to make our lives living hell. And there was lawsuits, and there was threats, and there was cops being called. It was terrifying. We literally slept with ice axes under our bed because we were terrified of being murdered.
I was expecting the door to fling open some night and be in self-defense mode.
Yes. So we had that going on. Then Rob's parents, at the very same time as all this was going on, were both very sick, and we were driving 3 hours almost every Sunday to go be with them and spend time with them. And then they both passed away within 3 months of each other.
Within 3 months of each other, yes.
So we had all that going on. But what I can tell you is it made us stronger. It built our bond so strong. We rarely came against each other through all that. It solidified us even more. As challenging as it all was, it pulled us further together than pushed us further apart.
It's called having confidence. When you start to be a two-person team instead of two individuals trying to solve things on your own, it gives you the confidence to trust the other person's judgment. And there were some days where I was having a very off day. You can't be just diving into a old but now new relationship and having both of your parents ill and dying without having a few days where you're just not put together.
Yeah.
So there were some days where I had to heavily rely on whatever Angie said was the best thing to do in any form of situation that came up. And learning that trust was very important. It just allowed me to just have a chance to just be me and do what I needed to do. And once that teamwork and trust starts to come together, where it seems like you can at least somewhat get through anything that's coming along, that never gets taken away from you.
Yeah.
That ability to communicate and just say, I'm just not doing well today. We got to keep the day simple. You become less afraid of that because you know the other person isn't going to take it offensively. They're just going to take it as information.
Yeah. So with all that we had going on, we even agreed to go to counseling very early in our union. I think we were only in union a couple of weeks.
And we were like, yeah, we should just make sure we got some outside help on this, just to make sure that we're really doing as well as we are. Because it was tough to believe sometimes when we were doing really well with all the stuff going on around us. We thought, no, we still need more ammunition here. We better just get some outside opinion and counseling on this.
Yeah. And that we found really helpful. And it also helped us in little things. And this is where it's also important. You might have little things that you think are petty. And you're like, God, why can't I get over this? Like, for example, again, knowing how you can be very different. You often assume that when you get into union, everything's just going to work perfectly because you're the same energy. And sometimes it does. I mean, some things were so easy. We had never, ever lived together, even in our previous time together when we first met and stuff. We had never lived together. And we didn't know if we could live together, but we just dove in and thought, well, let's try it. And it was mostly so easy. We are so similar. We do a lot of things the same. And we're both very neurotic kind of people. Very anal, very detailed, very particular. So that's not easy to live with just anybody when you have that personality. And yet it works well for us because we're very similar. Even if our idiosyncrasies are different of what we're particular about.
We agreed on which way the toilet paper was going to roll off the roll. Was it going to come off the top or was it going to dangle from the back and hang off the bottom? We had those discussions.
We did, and even how the dishwasher's loaded, and who was going to do what job and not job and everything else. But there was still some things that became big triggers that were really stupid. For me, one of those things was things not being put back when they were used. For example, in our kitchen, right over there, there is a pair of scissors. And Rob would often use them and then just leave them all over the place. And I'd go look for the scissors and it became such a trigger that we actually had to discuss it in counseling one time. It's not obviously why we went to counseling, but it came up.
It became an example.
It did. And I thought, is he just being an asshole? Like, is he really trying to annoy me? Thank you. And I found, no, he's not even aware of it. It's just because he does some things different than me. So again, even though you think you figure out everything is going to be perfect and you're so similar, not everything is going to be similar, and stupid things might trigger you.
Just talking about the scissors, Angie will use a pair of scissors and then put them back over where they belong.
Before I do anything else, I'll use them, put them back, and then carry on with what I'm doing.
When I'm using a pair of scissors, if I'm going to be using them again in an hour, I'll just put them on the counter so that they're right there ready to be used in an hour. Except that doesn't work, so I try to put away the scissors.
But what we've also learned is that where we are different is I'm the kind of person, I clean as I go. So if I'm working in the kitchen, I don't have a big mess. I like to do something, clean up. Do something, clean up. Rob is very opposite that way. And it's not that one's better or one's worse. It's just different.
I'll plan 4 tasks in an evening where the 4 tasks are going to take the whole evening. And cleanup time is not part of the task. Or else I'm only going to get 3 things done if I got to clean up. So I will make a big mess and then set aside a couple hours later.
Or days.
Well, a couple hours later, and that later may be a day or 2 later, that I go back and clean up the mess. So it's just 2 different points of view, but if I'm making a mess in the kitchen, that's very much a common area. In fact, a little bit more of an area of Angie's sensibility. So if I'm going to make a mess in the kitchen, I'm going to build in some cleanup time. It's just better that way. If I'm going to make a mess in the basement, I sometimes get away with that for a day or 2 or a week or 2.
Yeah, I don't care.
Okay, yeah, she doesn't care much about the basement.
Okay.
And if she makes a mess in the basement, then I feel right at home. I feel, oh, great, I've been given permission to make more mess, and away I go. And then eventually it gets to be to the point where, okay, it's even bothering me, and then I have a cleanup hour or 2.
But once again, it goes back to communication. When I had all the scissor, I mean, it was making me fume inside in the beginning of our reunion when we moved in together. I was like, God, you can't put away a pair of scissors? Like, give me a break. But instead of just saying something, it festered and festered so much that I had to bring it up in counseling. And then we had this talk about it and discovered we're just different. He's not trying to be a jerk or not trying to not do it just to annoy me. It's just we do things differently. So it's learning to honor that you're not going to be the same in everything you do when you're in union. And that's okay.
The word is respect. Respecting situations that are going to affect others. Your twin or other people. They can include many other people in this if you wish. But to respect others and where they're at when it's going to matter to them, it goes a long way.
Yeah.
It's just learning what to respect. Because you never know what's a respect trigger or
right,
not.
Right.
Not just
until you communicate with each other
you
and
communicate.
go, hey, this is kind of annoying me. Is there a way we can work around this? Or can you explain why you do it that way? I'm not out of criticism or judgment, but just so I can understand, so I can see your perspective of it. We're getting really dark.
That's okay. It's
hey, look at that.
The light's changing. All you have to do is just move the computer and show everybody that I'm wearing my train shirt.
Yes, you are.
I haven't been training. Well, I haven't been model training. I've been lightly physically training. It's actually mountain scrambling season just in days, so I better get back onto some serious training.
Yes. So, union over, how long have we been union? 6 years? 5 years? I don't know.
Over 5.
Okay. All right, we got engaged. It was just 5 years ago that we celebrated our engagement, so over 5 years.
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, I think 6. I don't know.
Numbers.
I think it was 6 in March. I've lost track. It's all...
Yes, that's why it's slightly over 6.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
It's bedtime alarm just went off. It's bedtime. I can't think straight anymore.
Oh, there's this. It's not like it's a noisy alarm. It's a silent word alarm that just popped up on the screen.
Yes. But I was going to say, because we have worked through a lot of challenges together, because we have learned to communicate, and because we have, just like any relationship, it takes time. It's not like you move in together and everything's perfect and kumbaya. some things were. I mean, we literally had hardly any furniture in our house because both of our previous relationships got it all. And we would literally like lay on the floor where our dining room table is now.
Yeah.
And we would just lay there for hours and just snuggle and talk.
Yep.
It was like the best thing. It was so cool.
And we'd have supper on our living room floor.
Yeah, like we were newlyweds with no furniture.
Yep. We were just newly together with no furniture.
Right. But in the beginning, we still did have quite a bit of challenges. Now we hardly have any, and when we do, they're resolved very, very quickly and very easily for the most part. Just like, again, I think most relationships have that over time, although some, I think, get worse because they build up because they don't say the things that are bothering them.
Going back to energy management, and this is going to be about the last example that I'll have. This past weekend, I made a mistake. I was moving things in and out of our SUV in the garage, and I kind of forgot what I was doing when I was doing. I decided to pull out the SUV out of the garage, but the hatch was still up. It worked really well until I got to the edge of the garage where the garage door closes, and then there was this smash as the back window got popped out of the hatch. And also didn't realize it until about an hour and a half later after we got done cleaning up all the glass that had shattered everywhere, that also the garage door was damaged to the point that it wouldn't function properly. I could have been really upset, but being upset wasn't going to back up time and give me another chance to not move my vehicle with my hatch open. I made a mistake. We had planned to go out to the mountains that day, and really, as to not upset Angie, and also to recognize that me being upset wasn't going to solve anything either, I just got right on with accepting the fact of where things were. Going to have to get a garage door fixed, going to have to get a piece of glass replaced.
Lots of cleanup of glass all over our hiking stuff.
There was
all over the vehicle, all over
sorts
the driveway.
of challenges, but 2.5 hours later, we were driving to the mountains in Angie's vehicle, still doing something to enjoy the day. I didn't, from my point of view, allow a bunch of negative energy to ruin the whole day. I just tried to take it in stride, and in the end, I had a pretty good day.
Well, and we were even on our hike on Sunday congratulating each other for how we each handled it. You know, like I could have been completely annoyed, like, oh my God, you just wrecked your vehicle and you wrecked the garage. What was that going to serve? What was that going to do to anybody? It was an accident. Okay, move on. We cleaned up glass together. We switched over everything to my vehicle. And then Rob was even kind enough. We were going to go on a specific hike that would take us on a gravel road, and my car is just a tiny little Yaris. It's not an SUV. So I was like, can we maybe go on a different hike so my little car doesn't get all chipped up on gravel? And he honored my request, and it just was a great day.
Turned out to be a really good day.
Yeah. There was no conflict at all. We just dealt with things, moved on with life, and went out to the mountains, enjoyed our day still, with a different plan.
The only thing that had a really bad day was my wallet. Of course, I still have my wallet, but now it's missing some money.
Yeah, even that wasn't that bad. Could have been way worse. So the point of this video is to just remind you that union is not the be-all and end-all. You're still going to have challenges, whether they're internal within your relationship or external just with life. It's not like life all of a sudden is like, oh, angels singing everywhere and it's all perfect and everything works out perfectly for you, because I know some people, that's their goal, right? Just let me get to union and everything will be working out great. No.
Union is just the start of final exams. Did you learn or did you not?
That's so good. I like that.
And when you finally pass a few of these final exams,
then you go on to university.
Well, then you just continue on with higher educations.
That's right.
But then you realize that this is why this journey is so blessed. Like, after doing all the work that brings forth a relationship like what we have, there is no real way that I could imagine replacing it. This becomes the relationship that you trust in and that you want to keep. for as long as you're incarnated. I could say forever, but that's probably how it turns out. So I don't have to say forever. We already got the forever portion of it. It's just the keeping it all put together while incarnated portion.
Yeah.
So that's what it's really like from our point of view. We've been fortunate enough to put it together so that it actually stays together.
With a lot of hard work. Before union and since union. It's
Still-
not like it's been all smooth sailing. But
Still learning, still will continue to learn.
Yeah.
I could
Yeah.
do something tomorrow and stomp all over a landmine. Oh, right. Trigger. That's what it's called.
and then we work through it and carry on.
And then I can forget about my limbs again and have a really sore hand.
That's right. Okay, so in closing, I wanted for us to both answer this question. I'm debating if we should write it down on a sticky.
I have no idea what's coming at me.
I know. Okay, what is your favorite aspect of union?
Faith. The faith in the relationship. The faith that we've faced a lot, and if the world throws it at us, we could face more. It's the faith in the relationship. The trust in what it's been through, the trust of what it can go through. So faith would be one of my best ways of describing what I like about a relationship.
Well, that's much deeper than what my answer was going to be. Now I don't even want to say mine.
Snuggles?
Yes, I thought that was going to be yours. We're very snuggly people,
Yes.
so we snuggle even in the damn grocery store.
Yes, we sneak snuggles. Look both ways. Nobody watching. Steal a kiss.
Yes.
Security camera, I'm sure, catches it all. 2 angles.
Yeah. All
Okay.
right, you passed the test, even if it wasn't the same answer I was expecting, but that's fine. That's a good answer. Wow. So if you have other questions about union or comments, feel free to leave them below, and we can either address them in another video or in our question and answer video, or just we'll answer below, whatever resonates. And yeah, hopefully this is helpful to understanding that union isn't the be-all end-all, but it is pretty darn amazing as well.
It is very amazing.
Yes.
Give it a try if you can.
All right.
You can't succeed if you never try.
Give it a try. That is Rob's ending quotes. And on that note, we're going to go because now his bedtime alarm's going off.
And mine's very noisy. You might actually even be able to hear it.
We have dual bedtime alarms because we're not adult enough to go to bed on our own.
One alarm goes off in Angie's world, and then in 8 minutes, no, not 10, not 5, not 15, but 8 minutes later, an alarm goes off in my world. And that if we ignore both of those alarms, then we deserve to be tired the next day.
That's right.
And we accept that.
Oh, we're not going to do that.
No, not tonight. Well, actually, I won't.
Okay.
I don't know about you.
No. All right. We love you guys. Thanks
Yes.
for your questions. And as I say, if you have more, put them down below and we'll be happy to answer them.
All right.
Bye for now.
Bye.